But first, let's look back on a classic. Two wonderful games. The first leg finished 3-3. The second leg finished 3-3. So it went to extra time, but it was Inter who, having scored a goal in the dying embers of normal time through a big centre-back sent up to cause havoc, ended up winning it in extra time. So, Shaka, Hislop, it's not really a case of did the right team win. We don't really care about that. We just want to wax lyrical about two teams that really did put on a show over two legs. What did you make of the tie in general?
I thought it was an incredible, game of football. It was an incredible tie of football in so many ways. First of all, Inter go to Barcelona, get a 3-3 draw there. You just wonder, can Barcelona respond in kind in Italy of all places? Inter go 2-up, and at that point you're thinking, let me switch the TV off. Let me put on Food Network and watch Chopped. And then all of a sudden, Eric Garcia gets one back, and the game just goes into overdrive, and you're not quite sure. After Eric Garcia scores, you had no idea what was coming next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the amazing thing with this game. Everything about it just had you on the edge of your seat. And it didn't matter whether you're an Inter Milan fan, whether you're a Barcelona fan, or whether you're a fan of anybody else and just here for the football. I think every single person comes away from that one thinking, what an incredible game of football I just witnessed.
All right, Eleni, I want to put that full screen back on because I think it's good to illustrate a couple of things. If you played that match last night 10 times, judging by those statistics, Barcelona's probably winning that 7 or 8. So how did Inter win? Did they ride their luck? Were they brave? How did they do it?
Yeah, part of it, I think, is my favorite saying by the playwright David Mamet, which is old age and treachery will always outdo youth and exuberance. You know, we're talking about the youngest team in Spain, one of the youngest squads in the Champions League, against the oldest squad in the Champions League in Internazionale. And I've said it over and over again, you can definitely count me on it, MD. Simone Inzaghi is one of the most underrated managers in international football in club competition because of this very reason. He sees what he has in front of him, and instead of trying to match up to it, he tries to counter you with the complete opposite. Inter are a very good counter-attacking side. They're very physical as well, and they have to rely on a few things in this particular game, which, as Shaka said, one of the best I think I've ever seen, definitely in memory in terms of a two-tie and two-legged affair. One, Denzel Dumfries played out of his mind. He was unbelievable. Yeah. Both fullbacks were wonderful, but Denzel Dumfries was incredible. I don't even think he defended. He was just really being just a physical force trying to push everything. Two, Jan Sommer was unbelievable as well, right? He created some really, really good saves. I know Shaka can definitely attest to that. He was unbelievable as well. But I think that overall, the reason why they won was because they really weren't concerned at any point if Barcelona were going to score, because they were ready for that outcome. They just wanted to be resilient, keep on going, be physical, and be in your face. It was that experienced Inter that did it. It was a tremendous game. Amazing. I never wanted it to end.
Okay. Inter pick up the fourth, and it's Manchester United. We'd like to give you 50 million for Andre Onana. Okay. So Inter pick up the phone. Hello. Yeah, we'd like to buy Jan Sommer for 6.5 million. He's 35 years old at the time that they signed him. I don't want this to turn into let's kick Man United when they're down. It's got nothing to do with them from a semi-final between Barcelona and Internazionale. But it just shows you if you shop in the right places, you can get a gem because good goalkeepers get better with age. Shaka, what do you make of this? Onana going, Sommer coming in, Inter getting a good goalkeeper and a $43.5 million profit. Make sense of this.
Listen, I thought at the time when Manchester United are looking for a goalkeeper to succeed David De Gea, that Andre Onana was one of the brightest prospects out there. Jan Sommer is a known quantity. Jan Sommer in the Bundesliga, for me, had been the second best goalkeeper in the Bundesliga for an age. And second only to Manuel Neuer, who some would argue has been the best goalkeeper in the history of the game. Or certainly the best goalkeeper around today. Now, that's another debate separately. You then wonder, Jan Sommer goes to Bayern Munich once Manuel Neuer goes off skiing and does as he does. And you just wondered if Jan Sommer's reputation took a little bit of a knock, because I don't think he lived up to the expectation, kind of given who he showed himself to be, or who Bayern Munich, more to the point, needed him to be in terms of a Manuel Neuer light. But that being said, I think anybody who kind of knows the game and knows goalkeeping knows better than to question Jan Sommer in trying to succeed Manuel Neuer at Bayern Munich. But his reputation took a little bit of a knock. And also because of his age. You know, and I understand the Andre Onana to Manchester United and the price tag. Could Manu have done this? I just feel that certainly in terms of purchasing a goalkeeper for the longer term, Jan Sommer was mid-30s, not fitting the profile of what Manchester United were looking for. Credit Inter Milan. They wanted somebody to come in, fill a gap quickly, who showed himself to be incredibly talented, and Jan Sommer tipped the well, every single box. And then comes this performance. And I have to say, I said to a friend of mine, who's I will add is a Real Madrid fan, that this has been the best goalkeeping display I have seen for quite some time. He wanted to highlight Courtois' performance against Liverpool a couple of years ago. Again, that's another debate for another day. But just in terms of goalkeeping performances, one-off goalkeeping performances, this was as good as I have seen. And Jan Sommer, again, in the headlines for the right reasons, again showing why he was as highly regarded as he has been for the last decade.
Lamine Yamal, just a baby. He's a baby that could have scored a hat-trick had it not been for Jan Sommer. But he's a kid who's got so much maturity, as well as being so much fun to watch. And he put out a really nice post on Instagram last night saying, hey, disappointed, but take it on the chin. Another day, it would have been better for us. But what he said was that we'll be back. And I like the fact that it was we rather than I, because he's been taught well, but he's a good kid. And he says, I'll be here when we win this Champions League. That was the only time he mentioned I, but he mentioned we as well. This is a kid who the neutrals love watching it. Imagine you had him in your team, LME. Do you think this is a kid who, with all the money on offer elsewhere, might just decide, you know what, this isn't about money. This is about me being at a football club that have treated me well, as they did with Messi when they brought him over from Argentina. And for Lamine Yamal, this might be something that is, we are right at the beginning of a love story that's going to last a long, long time with a kid that has no interest in going elsewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially Barcelona, because we're talking about a very special academy in La Masia. And as you know, Lamine Yamal is a phenomenon. I mean, we have seen tremendous talents, great talents, generational talents throughout history of football. But this is a 17-year-old that I have never seen anybody be this good at 17. Not in my lifetime. At 17, right now, what he's doing is unbelievable. And he is a kid, as you have said, but he doesn't play like one. He doesn't behave like one. He's just a remarkable player. And he grew up in the neighborhoods of Barcelona. He bleeds Blaugrana. And I have no doubt that he will be in this club for a very long time, if not, as you mentioned, permanently. And I think it's a testament to this Barcelona side and Hansi Flick, because once again, I have to repeat myself. This is the youngest team in Spain, one of the youngest in Europe. It's not just about Lamine Yamal. Pau Cubarsí, at 18 years old, he is remarkable. Remarkable. It's incredible. Pedri, to me, is the best player in his position at center midfield at 22 years old. And then there's Marc Casado, of course, Fermín López, Gavi. This is a very special team. And let's not forget that, you know, they lost this game, but they've already won the Supercopa de España. They've already won Copa del Rey. They're 4 points ahead of Real Madrid heading into El Clásico with a better head-to-head and a better goal differential. It's a remarkable achievement by a very, very young team, led, of course, as you mentioned, by the wonderful, incredible, phenomenal Lamine Yamal.
Given what Eleni's just said about how young Barcelona are and how much growth that they have. Normally, when you introduce statistics, Shaka, you do it to illustrate your point. But I want to illustrate a point in a different way here, because Barcelona have only reached the final once in their last 5 Champions League semi-finals. That was against Bayern in 2014-15. In 10 years since they reached the final, which is tough to take a team like Barca, but it's even harder to take when your local rivals, a couple of hours away in Madrid, have won their 833rd Champions League in that time. So while you can say, oh, but Barca, they can't get to the final because they've only done it once in the last 5, they've not done it for 10 years. But is this different because of what LME said and because of the fact they've got these kids that are only going to get better and they've got a coach that is not frightened to play these tactics?
Absolutely, it's very different. Barcelona, however we dissect this, we're 3 minutes away from going to that final, from going to that first final in was it 10 years? You say, Mark, and you see how thin the margins are. I thought the closing moments of regular time yesterday kind of almost illustrated perfectly how thin margins are in this game. At 3-2 and 88, 89 minutes on the clock, Lamine Yamal picks the ball up in the Inter box, hits a shot that thumps off the base of the post. Had that been 2 or 3 inches to the left, to his left, it would have been 4-2. Had it been 2 or 3 inches to his right, it hits the outside of the post, it goes out for a goal kick. Barcelona get to reset and defend whatever Inter throws at them. It thumps off the base of the post, and almost directly from there Inter go up and level it at 3-3. Those are how thin the margins are between us having a very different conversation around this game and probably around the final. So that being said, and I thought Hansi Flick, his post-game comments were absolutely spot on. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it was along the lines of, now people remember who Barcelona are. They respect this club once again. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but that is what I took from it. And I thought that was 100% true and exactly how Barcelona have established themselves over the course of the season. Because let's be honest, come August, I don't think anybody would seriously considering Barcelona as a Champions League semi-finalist, let alone finalist, as the champions elect in Spain. And I know there's still some way to go in that, let alone be the prospect, be the exciting prospect that they've shown themselves to be during the course of this season. And what's to come is absolutely frightening. With a little bit of experience and maybe a little bit of maturity to LME's code, this Barcelona team can prove themselves to be one of the most feared in European football.
If I'm an Inter fan watching this, LME, I'm like, hi, we won. You know that, boys. You're talking a lot about Barcelona here. We won. Yeah, time to give them some love. We have given Inzaghi a bit of love, and he thoroughly deserves that. So Mourinho's team in 2010 won. A couple of years ago, they lost. So this is their 3rd Champions League final since it came into being when football began in 1992. Who would they rather face in the final? Because it seems pretty obvious it's going to be Arsenal that they would rather face. But the likelihood is it's going to be Paris Saint-Germain. Are they favourites against Arsenal and underdogs against PSG? Or how do you see whoever they meet in the final with regards to who will be the favourites and who won't be, Ellen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because I think, like, at face value, you would think that Arsenal is a better opponent for them because of their gradual strategy to a game, right? Like Arsenal under Mikel Arteta are not obviously as gung-ho from an offensive standpoint as PSG. And you would think that sometimes Arsenal's, let's say, careful approach to how they try and win you over can probably be a benefit to Inter, who are more than happy to just sit and hit you physically with the counter. And by the way, Lautaro Martinez can be much better. So, you know, there's that to be said as well with his partnership with Marcus Thuram. And I think that that's probably true because PSG on their day are ridiculous. And something that's really good about PSG is, you know, and this obviously will fall into the preview with Arsenal, is that they're so good under Luis Enrique to kind of switch strategy mid-game. There are moments when Ousmane Dembélé may go from left to right to central. Kvaratskhelia can support that alongside the duo. And by the way, they go Barcola right there. Then you've got the best right back in the game in Achraf Hakimi. So, actually, when you have all those weapons, I think Inter over the course of a final might not be able to deal with it. But it's going to be an interesting way on how Inter approaches this final as opposed to 2023 when they faced Man City upon winning this treble. Will they have learned the lessons of a possession-centric team? We'll have to wait and see. But I tell you something, like this might be a situation where Inter look at that tape of 2023, look at what they have in terms of these two semifinals and say, we can finally win this. We just have to be smart, physical, and be in their face. And in many ways, the Barcelona test was a perfect tester for that final to come.
Before we get on to the EFC Arsenal preview on today's ESPN FC Live, I just want one little word from Shaka on Simone Inzaghi, because when you've got that coming towards you, like Inter had, in both legs, Barcelona's attack, they were rigid, they were strong, they were brave, but they always had an option to get out, whether it was Thuram, whether it was Lautaro, or Thuram had come back. They're just a really well-coached side. How does he do that?
By knowing his players, knowing their strengths, and I think kind of understanding that relationship between Thuram and Lautaro Martinez is absolutely key. The partnership that those two have struck up front for Inter has been phenomenal to watch. But at the same time, and while Elamis is talking about Luis Enrique and PSG's ability to change formations, change tactics, I think Inzaghi and Inter can do exactly the same. You kind of know who they are at times, but then when there's a need, they are able to respond, and you saw that in what at one point seemed like it was heading towards, as I mentioned, at 2-0, it was heading towards a fairly defensive display from Inter Milan, but that forced Barcelona to be even more open, even more attack-minded. Inter were able to respond in a way that maybe they wouldn't have to or have had to all season long. And I think Inzaghi needs to be given credit, and Inter have to be given credit for that. I think this is an incredibly talented Inter team, incredibly talented coach in Inzaghi. That as we know, can surprise and can beat you any which way. Low scoring defensive games or high scoring end to end, they've got the tools to employ either tactic.
And by the way, MD, just before we move on, yes. I don't think there's a better team in Europe that plays a 3 center back system than Internacional.
There's not.
And that's going to be a key thing.